Hey! Standalone components make it easier to build Angular applications because they don't need an NgModule. That means that you can build your component without having to declare that component in an NgModule somewhere. Standalone components were provided in Angular version 14 as a developer preview. With Angular v15 and now v16, standalone components are stable and ready to be used in your production applications. Let's talk about what standalone components are and how to use them. With the standalone components feature, we can build our components to, stand alone, separate from any Angular module or NgModule. This makes creating components easier and makes it clear which features each component's template uses. Without the standalone feature, when we create a component, we add it to an NgModule. We also need to add anything our component's template needs to that NgModule. You can think of an NgModule as a template resolution environment because it contains every library, module, or other component that each component template needs. In the NgModule, we declare each component in the declaration section, and if those components' templates use any Angular features, such as ngIf or ngModule, we pull in the modules for those features in the import section. But we don't know which of these components' templates need which of these features. Browser module provides services that are essential to launch and run a browser application. And browser module re-exports common module, which provides all of the basic templating features, such as ngIf and ngFor. Forms module provides the features needed for template-driven forms, including ngModule. HTTP client module provides HTTP services, and router module provides routing services. So an NgModule contains a list of every component along with everything each component's template needs. Let's look at an example. Here is my Star Wars vehicle sales application. It currently does not use standalone components. We'll change that in a moment. On the right is my current NgModule. Notice that every component used in this application is listed in the declaration section of this NgModule. On the left is the vehicle list component. It displays the list of vehicles for user selection. Let's look at its template. Here we use ngIf and the async pipe. ngFor is here. This code uses ngClass to change the style classes based on a value in the component. And it uses another async pipe. So our NgModule needs to pull in features for ngIf, ngFor, ngClass, and the async pipe. As we mentioned earlier, these features are provided by common module, which is exported from browser module, so our NgModule has everything that this template needs. Looking at the shopping cart item template, in addition to an ngFor, we see an ngModule, so our NgModule must import forms module. And looking at the vehicle shell component template, we see that it uses the vehicle list and vehicle detail components. Our NgModule is already pulling those in here. We want to start upgrading our application by changing our vehicle components to standalone. But how? Let's go back to the slides for a moment. There are two basic steps to creating a standalone component. First, we add a component property called Standalone and set its value to true. Second, we import everything that the template needs directly into the component. And if we are migrating a component from NgModule to standalone, we have a third step. We remove the component from the NgModule. A standalone component should not be declared in an NgModule. As an example, here is the vehicle list component. We add the standalone property to the component decorator and set its value to true. Then we import what the template needs. Recall that the vehicle list template used ngClass, ngFor, ngIf, and the async pipe. We declare each of these in the imports array. Instead of declaring each of these features separately, we could import the common module here. Either way works. Because this is an existing project, our last step is to remove the component from the NgModule. We could also remove any imports that this component needs, if no other component needs it. For example, recall that our cart item component uses NgModule, which requires Forms module. Once we change that component to standalone, we can remove Forms module from NgModule here. Now let's modify our vehicle components to standalone. Going back to the code example, I'll slide the module back to the left for more space. We'll start with the vehicle list component. Here in the component decorator, I'll set standalone to true. Then I'll open the template to see what it needs. Here is an ngIf, an ng-for, an ng-class, and some async pipes. Back in the component, we add the imports array, then specify async pipe, ng-class, ng-for, and ngIf. Notice that if we pick the entry from the suggestions list, VS Code automatically adds the import statement for them here. That brings up an important point. Notice that we use the import declaration here at the top. This import is a JavaScript feature that lets JavaScript know which libraries that this code uses. This imports array property of the component decorator is an Angular feature that lets Angular know which features that this component's template uses. Since this is an existing component, our last step is to remove the component from the app module. I'll delete it from here. Next, let's modify the vehicle shell component. Again, in the component decorator, set standalone to true. Because our template is directly in the component, it's easy to see what we need: the vehicle list component and the vehicle detail component. Now let's see if the application works. Click Run, start debugging. It looks like it's compiling. Oh, bummer. In the terminal window, we see Failed to compile. I purposely made several errors so we can see how to debug common standalone issues. Any guesses what some of the errors are before we look? Scrolling up. First, we see component vehicle shell component is standalone in an NgModule. What did we forget to do? Yep, we forgot to remove the shell component from the NgModule. Second, we see an error in the imports array of the vehicle shell component. The component appears in imports, but is not standalone and cannot be imported directly. We can only import standalone components and modules. So far, we changed the list component and shell component to be standalone, not the detail component. Keep this issue in mind as you change your components to standalone. Components used by other components should be modified first. To fix this, let's modify the detail component to also be standalone. Set standalone to true. Identify what the template needs and add it to the imports array. In this case, async pipe, decimal pipe, ng-for, and ngIf. Or again, just import common module. Now that the detail component is also standalone, the shell component has everything it needs. Then in the app module, I'll remove the vehicle detail component and the vehicle shell component that we changed to standalone earlier. Scrolling down, looks like we've now compiled successfully. So let's bring up the application. And there it is. Click on Vehicle List, and we see the list of vehicles. Select one, and we see its detail. Select another one, and we see its detail. Our code still works. Going back to the code, we can make our component standalone without an NgModule by adding the standalone property and importing everything the template needs. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.